Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Good afternoon and welcome to Collaborative Connections radio show and podcast sponsored by KLM. I'm your host, Kelly Lorenzen, and we are live in the Phoenix Business Radio X studio. And we have one guest in studio and two on Zoom. So we're excited to have everybody on today. I created Collaborative Connections to gather people together. I think that we do better together. We build communities better if we do business with people we like, know, and trust. So this show is a little tiny bit different, but same, because you guys all know each other and all friends and have collaborated over the last 25 years. But my dad just retired from 50 years of patient care. So I wanted to bring him on and highlight his career and have two of his best friends on as well to talk about the journeys together that you've had. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Nick Morrison to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on. And Tony Jakubowski, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, Nick. I'm happy to be here.
And Joe Zygmunt, welcome to the show.
Hey, good afternoon. Great to see you guys. Happy to be here as well.
Thank you all. So I'm going to jump right in. Nick, I'm going to call you Nick for the duration of the show. How about that's weird instead of Dad. Tell us about I want to hear your journey for those people who don't know your journey. Why did you get into medicine and what led you to stay in it for 50 years along the way?
I got lucky in high school. I decided that I wanted to do medicine, which is pretty unusual because most people don't know what they really want to do. Particularly these days, they don't know what they want to do when they finish college, let alone still in high school. So I decided that's what I want to do, and that put me on a path that that was very straightforward. There was a pre-medical curriculum that you went through in college. Everything was laid out for you, with a few exceptions. And then you went on to medical school, and then to residency, and then practice since there. And as I said, I was lucky to know that from the outset, because it took away a lot of decisions that you would otherwise have to make, and probably took away some of the anxiety that I know young people really have now about what they want to do.
It is. It feels like a forced thing these days of you got to make a decision, and then they get worse. It seems like they have more anxiety about it, anxiety. There's not too many people, I think, anymore that know from the onset what they want to do, for the rest of their lives.
Well, no, and they don't stay in like we used to when I was in college. I was on a pre-med path, and I stayed there for the 50 years. People don't do that anymore, which is in some ways healthier than what we did before.
Mm-hmm. I would think so. Well, okay, Tony, you're up. Tell us your journey and what led you to what you're doing now.
Kelly, can I just add on to Nick's story? Because you told me this just a couple of weeks ago when you were a young boy. You were running around with not such a great crowd, and then you switched over to a little stricter school. And the comment you made, which I thought was really important, is it was suddenly okay to be smart. It was okay to be a smart kid in a school. And I think you were lucky in lots of ways, but moreover, you were lucky because somebody told you that. And it's okay, because your previous group that you ran with, where are those guys now? Because you ran down that list before. Where are they now?
Some of them are still alive. Most of them are in jail.
Yeah.
And have been.
I think that's important with these kids today. And when we had our 4 kids coming through high school, it was their guidance counselor. What do you want to be? You got to know. You got to declare. And there's so much pressure on the guidance counselors to get kids graduated out and to declare and what they have to do. And I'm 58. I got to tell you, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
That doesn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah. And if I was in school now, I'm sure I'd be on all kinds of Ritalin or things like that when Now that I'm 58 and I have some money, I'm just an eccentric entrepreneur. But really, the shiny spoon in front of me it catches my eyes all the time. And that's what Joe and I spend most of the time on the phone with all week long. Hey, did you hear about this? What I asked you about yesterday, Joe?
Yesterday, geez, the conversations run together. There was a
About the
shiny
junkyard.
spoon.
It's about the junkyard.
That's right. It was about the junkyard, and it was about how the owner of a junkyard has to deal with listing his assets and how they get depreciated over time. Because if he buys a car that was totaled by the insurance company and then sells it off piece by piece, how is all the accounting and everything done with regard to something like that? Obviously, a complicated question, but it certainly gave us about a 20-minute chat about some real interesting things.
Boy, you
Anyway.
guys have a lot of time on your hands. Gee.
Well, these are the things that still plague me at 58 years old. And now that my kids are in their mid-20s, we're talking about this all the time with them, that they don't need to know. What they need to do is bring their passion to an idea, passion to an opportunity, and then see where that takes them. And that's pretty much how I got to know Nick and Joe on the call here today. I was a laser salesman. That's what I am primarily. I think everybody's in sales. And so I was selling a laser, my phone rang, and the doctor on the other end said, hey, can you come to New York? I have this idea. And I said, sure. I don't know what a saphenous vein is, and I don't know, but I know what a laser is. And we flew out there, and the endovenous laser ablation market was born. And we just ran hard and fast to make it something. And in between there were other opportunities, like I showed you prior to the show with TTTS. And we do a lot of prostate business, prostate ablation, a lot of ENT work. And so while I never graduated from medical school and literally rode the short bus most of my life, I get to spend a lot of time with really smart people, get invited to calls like this. And so I too am blessed for the people who guided me along the way.
I think they say now that you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think that's, kind of the theme, right, that you're saying is if you would have stuck around with those people in middle school, then that's the direction you go.
Yeah.
If you get put in other situations, right, if you're open, Tony, and teaching your kids the same thing that I am, right, that follow your passions, do something that you really love, and make money at it, find a way to make money at it, but then get to be around, be passionate around other people that are passionate, and you leaving yourself open to that, as you say, getting all those calls, right, is a really cool way to.
Kelly, I like to have a caveat to what you just said. I don't think you should necessarily follow what you love. What you love can be lots of things, like building a business, but you can build a business in junkyards, as Joe and I talked about, and in inventing a new longer lasting light bulb or a hydration station at the Sturgis rock concert. So building those, those are all different things and ideas that I have. I have probably a business idea every 2 or 3 times a day. I run into the place where you drown in seas of opportunity. There's too many things, and I like too many things. So there's one passion. I don't have one passion. My passion is, and my fear as I get old, is that I'll lose curiosity about something. How does that work? How does a welder do that? How do things happen like that? So I'm not teaching my kids to do what they love. I'm teaching them to cope with life, the ups and downs, spend as much time doing something that they love, but primarily they're responsible for food, clothing, and shelter. And what's not on that list, it's only 3 things, is a cell phone, a vacation in Bonaire, scuba diving gear, a convertible, a Lexus, whatever. It's food, it's clothing, and shelter. And if you have to cover your food, clothing, and shelter by selling miles and miles of fiber optic filament to a guy like Nick, then that's what you have to do. Then you bring your passion and find something else that's exciting to you to do on the weekends or something.
There you go, to build it. Joe, okay, your turn. You're up. Tell us the journey. Tony went all over. Hopefully people at least followed along a little bit with his journey.
I fell asleep about 10 minutes ago, so
It was definitely a circuitous path, I'll say that. But that's what, is fun about knowing Tony. As he said, we're all in the medical field, and yesterday we're talking junkyards, right? So, anyway, I got a kind of an interesting start, if you would, which is I went to the University of Pennsylvania, got my degree back east, and
we want you to be sure and know that he got an Ivy League education.
did I slip that in there? I'm sorry.
I think so. Yeah, I heard it.
But the long and short of it is I got this degree in biology, and then I was like, well, what do you really do with a degree in biology? And a lot of the folks that I were in school with either were doing pharmaceutical sales or they were going into medical school. And frankly, neither one of them were that appealing to me. And I wound up, believe it or not, spending my first summer cutting grass with a friend of mine in a landscaping business, which was really an impressive job, as mom and dad used to call it, when I was kicking around the house wearing shorts all summer. But what it led me to was eventually taking a position with a company that was specializing in diagnostic ultrasound. And with the diagnostic ultrasound, I kind of took to it like a fish took the water. Like some people have the gift to, play music. Other people have that gift to do math well. There was something about ultrasound and imaging that just really came simple and easy to me. So I started there. And, I did that for a couple of years in the Philadelphia market. And then I moved to South Florida. And I met a physician who was doing sclerotherapy, which is the injection of veins to get rid of them, if you would. And this was, again, the late 80s. It was 88 when I met this physician. And next thing you know, I'm working with him. We're doing some ultrasound, and then we're doing ultrasound guided sclerotherapy, which was, relatively pioneering work at the time. There was a couple of French folks that had done it before us, but we were the first ones doing it in the States. We took it to the US meetings, popularized it. And as Tony was saying, you do what you love, you do what you're good at. This was just something very simple. And I think, we were talking earlier, everybody was saying about being, a little bit of gratitude about where you were. I just happened to land at the right place at the right time. And through the development of, that process, we learned a lot about venous anatomy. We learned a lot specifically about vein therapy. Come the turn of the century, we had RFA, radio frequency and laser ablation started. I wound up, being with a very good partner friend, John Moriello, and, we started some vein clinics together. Nick actually came and visited us, in our clinics. I met Tony along the way at some of the conferences that we went to. And, as we started, kind of popularizing or talking about this technology, if you would, we, would go to the meetings and we'd give our lectures and be part of the educational force, if you would, to share the knowledge. And ironically, I know one of the really interesting quotes that I love to talk about was from a dear past friend, Hugo Parsh, who I believe was 2004, said that, ultrasound was one of the most significant contributions to the field of phlebology in the last 10 years. And from there, it was just really amazing because, again, involved with the medical societies, the teaching, the education. And, I started writing papers, and I actually have a couple of textbooks all about ultrasound diagnosis. My business partner, Dr. Moriello, retired. I wound up joining medical industry, and I work with a device manufacturer at this point. But over that entire period, the two folks that we're talking with today have become the best of friends, and we traveled the world together. We've seen and done some amazing things, and it's just been an amazing ride.
Really cool. So speaking of traveling the world, so patient care is so general. Tell us you started in what you started in and how you ended up in the vein world with these characters.
Yeah, so with characters is right. So I finished medical school, did an internship in a variety of specialties, and then started my surgical training and went through 4 years of general surgery training. practiced as a general surgeon here in the Tempe area for 20 plus years, and about age 50, I talked to another general surgery friend who had started to do some vein work because all we had at the time was stripping, and things were starting to change. So we took a look at that and decided we were going to move in that direction, and we did. It was a leap of faith to do that because I'd been doing insurance-based general surgery work for a very long time. And so at that point, my wife Terry and I decided to set up a vein clinic here in the Southeast Valley, and we ran our own practice for about 20 plus years, and then went to work for a company for about 4 or 5 years, and then retired in January. Very happily, I should say. Although I have to say, I really, really loved doing what I did for so long. I loved doing general surgery, but when I went to venous work, I didn't miss general surgery a bit. And people now are asking me, do you miss work? And I said, not one bit. I'm having too much fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. I probably learned that from you, is continue to do what you love until you don't love it anymore, or like be passionate about it. You and Mom both were so passionate about what you were doing. And that's why I say I never make a 5-year plan. All my coaches are probably like pulling their hair out with me saying that, but I always stick to what I am what I love doing until it's not a passion, until I don't like it anymore, and then move on.
Tony, have you ever had a 5-year plan?
Please. That's my favorite interview question, though, when I was interviewing, like, because you'd find the job listing, right? And then you put in your resume, you get on the schedule, and that maybe takes 30 to 45 days, and you get your resume up and all your references, and sit down with the people and so tell me what your 5-year plan is. My response was always, well, 46 days ago, I didn't even know who you were. So now you want to know what you really want to know is how I'm shifting my plan from 46 or 47 days ago to how it's now going to include you. I don't really know that. I can tell you what I can tell you what some of the wrong answers are. I can't tell you what the right answers are, because the older you get, Nick, you know this, there's multiple right answers to questions. Multiple right, but you know what? You definitely know what some of the wrong ones are.
Yeah.
Don't step there, but you could possibly step there, right? So yeah, a 5-year plan, no clue.
Joe?
5-year plan? No, I usually don't. I don't think I've ever thought that way, to be quite honest with you. And it's interesting now that you're asking to retrospectively look back at life. And again, I'm going to go back to the word gratitude and luck, because I just seem to luck into the right thing at the right time and meet the right people. And I think that's also where the passion part comes in as well, because if you're having fun and you're enjoying what you're doing, okay, and you've got a good positive outlook and people sense that and feel that in you, then like networking and interacting with people becomes second nature and easy. And then there's a lyric from a Van Morrison song, I think, that says something about pieces falling into place. And that's what it feels like life has done. It just fell into place. So yeah, 5-year plan. Sorry, don't have one.
Good. I'm in good company then.
That's not the same thing as saying you don't have demons in your head. I think it's important to say, because our friendships are not Pollyanna. We're not every day calling each other up and say, you look really great in a pink shirt, Joe. Gosh, aren't we lucky? Aren't we? Have this thing. We have many, many demons every day. I don't have enough zeros in my checkbook. I have plenty, but not what I think I should have, and certainly not compared to other people in the world. And then in other categories, Joe and I would switch on some of those topics. So let the audience understand, it's not like we don't struggle with demons, because that voice inside your head is not always your best friend.
Let me come back again to that. All three of us, and all of my family, for that matter, have done this charity work. So we leave for a week or two, go to Central or South America, and work our butts off for a week or two to deliver medical care to people who have no access to it and would never have it. And both Tony and Joe have been on many of those trips. Kelly's been on several of them, as they have other members of our family. So it's a thing that Terry and I started. I think it was in 1989, and we've been doing it pretty much ever since. But that's a whole lot of, it's a tremendous amount of work, and it's very, very gratifying work to do. But it's a whole lot of fun with those two.
Well, I was just gonna say, right? You meet these people, like you said, Joe, and you get to network them, and you see it's really easy. Well, it's really easy for the people that you like to be around. It
Yeah.
makes it really easy, and then you just build your life around what are we traveling together? What are we, what are we
Yeah.
gonna do giving back? That's a big win in life, I think, is if you can play with the same people that you work with and enjoy with and give back with. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a big deal.
And I've organized these trips, and I choose people very carefully. And it's those people that I know that I've worked with who are really, really good at what they do and are fun to be around on, because it's a stressful situation when we go down there. It's a whole lot of work, and we're seeing some very, very sick patients. But if you have people who are really, really good with you, it's a lot more fun than it is work.
And you guys get to go again this summer and continue on from COVID. That was sad not getting to go for a couple of years.
Yeah, it was. We're really looking forward to getting back. 1st of July.
Yeah, Michaela and Josh are coming.
Yeah.
I know. I am
Family
really,
affair once again.
I'm really excited for them to get to experience what I experience. There's not many people in the world that get to experience that as a kid, that the importance of giving back, the people don't live the same way as we live. Things are not, all of it. It's just, there were so many lessons along the way. And I said to my sister the other day, I said, well, we not the other day, a couple months ago when we were trying to decide about to send them, to have them go. And she said, it was life-changing. I said, that's exactly why I'm having my kids go, because it is life-changing to provide free medical care, free help to people that would never in a million years be able to get access to it.
Kelly, I have a question for you. So I've brought my kids along on these trips too when they're in their 14, 15-year-old age span. And all 4 of them have commented that it's amazing how happy the people are in Nicaragua and where I took them, and yet they have so little, but they seem to laugh with each other more and be happier and smiling. Or in the back of a truck, you see them going down the road in the back of a truck, and these are happy people. It was life-changing for my kids in that respect, that here they are in a very opulent society, and we lived in Chicago at the time, and complaining about things when these kids when nobody was watching, seemed to be happy. Did you have that same kind of observation when you would go?
Oh yeah. And the coming back and going, I'm never complaining about that again. I mean, and I went at least 5 or 6 times, and one of the times spent a whole month down there, before you guys came or after you guys came, I can't remember. And just living in that environment makes you so much more accepting and more worldly. I know that's a word, but there's no judgment, after that. There was no judgment of anybody anymore, of how people are, who's what, I don't know. It just took away all of that for me, that people, I loved since then traveling the world and seeing all the different cultures. I love culture because of it.
Well, I want to tag on to that, if I may, just from a standpoint of, again, the world traveling, seeing the different cultures, the things that you guys just pointed out about understanding how other people live, and they're happy and they enjoy life. And then, you know, we think about it, Tony, you even mentioned earlier a little bit about the demons that get in our own brains and that slow us down and what we complain about or whatever. And it's interesting because, hey, I'm sure they have bad days down there too, but it's such a different life, and it gives you such an appreciation that it is about your own personal outlook and how you encounter whatever it is that shows up in your life. And the other thing I wanted to add about that, because of the benefit that the children, if you would, of the physicians and folks that go on these trips have enjoyed, is that idea of the exposure to the other cultures. And it may not be a very popular idea, but I always thought the idea of a gap year between high school and college would be wonderful, and that kids should actually get that year. It should be a government funded thing or something, such that they do world travel, they see how other parts of the world are, and then they can start that trip through college or work or technical college or whatever it is. Because usually when people start working, they're at the grind, you know, for 50 years, like Nick was, like Tony and I are every single day. And there's an appreciation that you get when you travel and you see these other folks and the other cultures and how they live, that it just really sets into your brain how to appreciate what you have and where you are every single day. So just a little side tidbit there.
That's why we're pushing Joshua to go have that gap year and go world travel. He's saving up his money, a bunch of money, so he can go travel and do that on purpose, you know, to be able to experience life and experience the world, and then decide what you want to do, you know, see where your passions lie. I think that's really cool. All right, so people who don't know, this is a philanthropy, this is a trip. We back up a little bit and tell what the roles are of everybody and what's the purpose.
Yeah, so we gather a bunch of specialists to go down and do medical care for people who just can't afford it. We travel at our own expense. Usually costs in the range of $50,000 to $75,000 to make the trip. It's free to everybody who comes in, and the group is carefully chosen, always with some younger folks to help and teach and get exposure to, first of all, a purely philanthropic, altruistic effort. There's no gain other than what you get, which is tremendous. The feelings that you get from people who are so appreciative of what you do. And then when we get down there, we function as a team because we've chosen people carefully. It's a very well-oiled machine that gets in there. We always sometimes feel like we're invading because we have people who work there and live there help with the work, and we'll teach them as we go along. But one of the other things that all three of us have been really involved in are education, and so. Joe and I have been involved in these Venus associations, and we spent our careers teaching everything and researching, and because we were both very, very inquisitive. And then along those lines, Tony is just as inquisitive as anybody, and has come to the teaching mode kind of a different way.
And you get to teach all those people down there what you're doing, so that hopefully they will take it away. And my kids will be the translators, so that's why kids go either for grunt work to be the lifters and or the translators. We even got to take take stuff out in the recovery room. We got to work in the recovery room. We got to do more. My girlfriend, who went through medical school after the fact, said I got to do more down there in a week than I did all the way through medical school.
And we had them scrubbed in surgery. We would just love to give them that experience.
The teaching on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's been several of the children that even though you would think that's a natural path, but several of them who have been, children of physicians who wound up going to medical school themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And they really looked at the huge benefit and learning opportunity of being in that, environment with the caliber of people, doing that volunteer work. And then again, not to understate it, but Tony has probably taught as many, if not more people than anyone, so much about how to do vein ablations as one of the, most senior sales guys in the laser world that has been around since the start of time, if you would. And Tony's education and what he can teach people is amazing.
Well, I like to just sprinkle lots of jokes in between the procedures. So
what
it's
is
hard to
your tater tot recipe, by the way? So, to explain that, patients generally don't speak any English. And so Tony, who doesn't speak one lick of Spanish, will talk to them as we're doing the procedure, because they're all done under local anesthesia. And Tony will talk to him, and he generally starts out by saying, "So what is your tater tot recipe?" And the patient looks at him like they have no idea what he said. But within a few minutes, the patient is laughing and carrying on as Tony is laughing and carrying on. And we're trying to get a procedure done.
Like, what time is dinner? What time should we be over?
Yeah.
Should we bring something? What should we bring?
Verbal anesthesia, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
So
right.
I hope Josh and Michaela are ready for that, because they're going to have to translate my jokes.
Yeah, they'll be ready. They'll be ready. All right, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. Accomplishments. If you look back on your time, what would you say would be your top couple greatest accomplishments?
I think what I do very well is motivate young people. So it started with the kids, and as they grew older, and then younger people in the field. I'm a very good motivator of young people, and that's something I think I got from my Jesuit training in high school, college, and medical school. But it's something that I, as you know, I'm not a proud person at all, but I really think I've done a really good job doing that.
Especially, I don't know previously, obviously in general surgery, but in veins, having the practice and having people come train and mentor. And you've seen a lot of the people that we trained at Morrison Vein Institute come now and have their own practices and all the things. I mean, that's a big, that's a really cool.
Certainly Nick Sedona days would have to be one of your major, and if you don't mind me, I'll set that up. There's medical conferences all over the place and all over the country, all over the world, on various subject matters or disciplines. And most of them are sort of like asking, your wife if you look good today, or do I look fat? She's just going to say, no, you look great. And there's not a lot of discerning of information. So Nick put together basically an anti-Congress, the opposite of that, where he puts 40 to 50 doctors into a room, very limited topics, and designed to be debated amongst peers. And what comes out of that meeting is so beneficial for everyone who attends. I don't think you'll ever fully, I know you have an appreciation for it, but it'll be years and years and years to fully understand what an anti-Congress is. There's no vendors, there's no industry there. It's just doctors in a room talking about their mistakes, or talking about something they read that they disagree with, something that's common knowledge that just doesn't make sense to them. And it's all in the vein business. So maybe you could talk about that. I think that's a major thing that you've contributed professionally.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. It's certainly been a labor of love, for sure. These are all people who are very, very good in their field, who come and learn from each other. And the smartest person in the world can learn something from the guy sitting next to him, the person that's sitting next to him. We have lots of women who come that are accomplished and can teach us all.
I think one of the best descriptions too I've heard recently about that meeting is that, like Tony mentioned earlier, your typical medical conference is a key opinion leader, a key thought leader, if you would, at the podium, teaching a room full of people. And here, actually, what Nick has done is brought together a group of key opinion leaders to push the envelope, to talk about, things that are maybe a little controversial, or where the science needs to go. What do we look at next? Where can we learn more and improve what we're doing so that the care gets better as well? Everything from basic science to, differences in, how to approach a problem, if you would. So fantastic. And again, at that point, you're talking about peers teaching and educating each other, not, for instance, a professor at the front of the room teaching the students at a congress. So fantastic environment.
What a cool thing. That could be replicated in so many industries.
Absolutely.
I'm sure it is in certain ones, but I'm thinking my head's spinning already. Ooh, how can I do that?
Yeah.
Right, for our industry. But that's different than like you going to the conference and it's all fluff, or sometimes you get good content, right? But you can't have a back and forth discussion. You're just taking it in and not working through it to decide, is that the best way to do things? I think you're right, Tony. I think that's going to be a long time legacy for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that you do is choose people carefully who won't dominate. And then at the start of the meeting, I always say, leave your egos at the door. You come in here, everybody's going to learn from everybody else. And I try to make sure that happens.
That's really, really cool. Okay, what about you, Tony? Any along the way, any significant accomplishments that stick out?
If I have one thing I'm most proud of in my life, it's probably my marriage to Terry, and 32 years in a couple days, 4 children who are seemingly well balanced and coping with life. Anybody who's married knows that this is a full-time job. It's never a Cinderella story. You work at it all the time. And we became empty nesters, moved to Idaho, and it just keeps getting better. But it's always a direct relationship to the work I put into that and the work Terry's put into that. And so I think I'm probably most proud of that. I'm probably wealthier than most men in that regard. And the friends I've been able to collect through the years, there's an old saying, if you have 1 or 2 friends at the end of your life, that's really good. I have a lot of friends that I could call today. And I've always tried to be that good friend, be accountable to those friends. And if the friendship is in a hard times for some reason, not just move on. So stick through that. So it's in business. I've done lots of things. I'm proud of all my work in the vein business and stuff. And I'm proud that I think I've built a reputation in 20 some years that you're going to get the straight truth from me, even if I don't benefit from it financially. And that's not always true in the circles that we run.
Any industry, right? We don't know how if the truth is actually 100% coming out or not, because of all the kickbacks and side things, and they have so spiffs and all the things, right? If there's so much of a background.
In my medical companies, I have a saying that says there's a human being at the end of all of our products. And I don't mean the doctor that's holding the fiber, I mean his patient. And whoever you are, whether it's a in-office vein procedure or a gallbladder or a prostatectomy, that person is nervous the night before and scared. And so's their loved one. And somebody had to take off work, and somebody had to arrange their schedules to get there. And if our shipping department screws up the shipment and it doesn't get there on time, that means they have to postpone that surgery. Or the doctor has to explain, I'm going to do it a different way because X, Y, or Z. And that kind of bad karma in the world, we take great precautions to protect or diminish. Sometimes it happens, but we just have to remember that these are human beings at the end of our products, not just a laser fiber that goes out. So I'm kind of proud about that.
Really cool. All right, you're up, Joe.
Yeah. Well, obviously there's been some good things spoken about. Obviously, the friends you've met along the way, certainly huge. And like Tony said, there's that saying about how many friends you have, and I don't know I want to necessarily list them out, but I think I got a few, and that works. I think the thing that I get most excited about when I look back is, uh, again, being a little immodest, this is difficult, but I think it's the impact that I've had on patients. And what I mean by that is like when I was seeing patients and treating them, you're making people healthy, right? You're doing a procedure, they're improving, their lives are better, they feel better, they're more active, etc. Nick, you can expand, so can you, Tony, on this. And it was kind of interesting because when my business partner, Dr. Moriello, retired, I was kind of like, well, now what am I going to do? And I wound up going into industry. And I never really thought about it before, but in some ways, I've actually been able to impact even more because I've been able to continue to educate and teach. And that information, that knowledge has spread now. So it's that whole kind of pollination idea. It's not necessarily that I'm touching every single patient and then I'm helping that, but there's a lot of people now, not only because of what I did with industry, but with the American College of Phlebology, which is now American Vein and Lymphatic Society, and the education that we did there, and all those things. And there's just a tremendous amount of people every day that are receiving care. And we helped actually train and coach and mentor a lot of those folks that are taking care of hundreds of patients every year. So I think that's, for me, one of the things that really makes me feel good.
That's really, really cool. You guys both talked about patience and how it sprinkles and how it continues. Is there a story that you can think of that comes top of mind of a patient that you treated that sticks out for you, that was a kind of a life-changing for them?
Maybe not one, but as I'm retired and have some time to think about things, I'm thinking that I have a great appreciation for the patients who were helped by what I did, and the the impact that I made, not the impact that they tell me that I made on their lives. I didn't when I was working. I'm not sure I appreciated that much. I'm seeing that more now.
And especially as you were retiring, a lot of them that you at least still talk to got to tell you those things.
Yeah, I heard and read a lot of things from nice people, and continue to do so because Terry is still working, and she sees some of the patients that I treated, and she gets compliments. I get compliments from them.
And people in the industry, doctors, anytime I would travel with you guys working, in the practice or in the practice out in the field, and doing the marketing, constant, oh my gosh, I love your dad. Oh my gosh, the amount of comments I got about how much impact you've had on the industry and them and in patients and alike. There wasn't a week that I was out in anything that I didn't hear that comment.
Yeah.
That was very nice. I was a very proud daughter.
It's, it's really funny, Kelly, because your dad is not interested in any of those accolades from
I know.
years. He wants like nothing, he hides. But I don't forget what trade show it was, but I was going to meet Nick for a drink, and I was in the elevator and got out, and I saw this guy I knew. He goes, "Oh my God, I just rode the elevator with Nick Morrison." I said, "Really?" All of his friends call him Booger. But go ahead.
Go ahead, ride the elevator with him. I know. What about you guys, Tony, Joe? Anything that sticks out? Any
Well,
story?
I'll go first if you don't mind, Tony. And it goes back to actually our volunteer trips to Central America. The very first time we went, we talked about this earlier, but it's a statement that actually gets me a little almost every time I think about it. But the very first time I went, Nick had, been several, years before, and he invited me along, and we went down. And of course, even though that, we've heard those stories about Tony and his brownie recipe discussions, we get done doing a treatment on, one of these nice little, Aztec people from the mountains that would come down to see us. And she said something, didn't understand what she said. And you can tell it gets me every time I think about it. She said, your payment will come from the gods.
It's a common thing that we hear down there. I've forgotten what it is in Spanish, but it's you always take that in.
Yeah, it's amazing thing to know that they appreciate you so much for what you're doing, and we're just giving them great care, and fantastic thought.
There's the karma that Tony
We'll
was
joke
talking
about it sometimes. The patient will finish the procedure, and the patient will get up and give Joe a great big hug, and I'm standing back there saying, hey, what about me?
They don't think you're approachable, maybe, for the hug. Maybe you don't look like you want a hug. Tony, what about you? Anything that sticks out?
I think two of these trips are really impactful. This one patient, just chatting with her through the interpreter and stuff, let it be known that she traveled. She didn't have a car. She had to take 2 buses, sleep at her sister's house and a donkey or something. And she lived 4.5 hours away, and they don't make appointments. And like, if our flights are canceled, like, she's still got to go back. So the people that are being recruited right now, even while we're on this radio show, there's people planning to meet us at the clinic. And so it strikes me really deep to think that I might have a medical condition that I have to start planning on now for July 4th, if I'm in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, right now where I sit. So 4 hours from here would be halfway to Boise, right? Or call it all the way to Kalispell, that I would have to figure out how to walk there or take a bus or 2 buses, with the hope that the medical doctor there would see me, and then hope that he could do something for me, and hope that I'll feel better at the end of that. It's something we totally take for granted here in America. You could call, Kelly, if your kids need a doctor's appointment, you call up and get on the schedule the next opportunity and you go. And so things like that. And then a conversation I had with our late friend Ted King at the Managua Airport coming back. And Ted had run a vein clinic in Oak Brook, Illinois, with very high-end patients there. I said, do you ever have a hard time transitioning back? Because those patients are like, do you see this small vein here on my face?
Man, yeah.
I can't get through the day because of this vein. And we just took maggots out of somebody's medial malleus ulcer. And the contrast is really striking for me, the duality of it.
When I organize those trips, what I tell people is, don't bring your expectations down here, because they don't apply down here. Yeah. And the same thing is true when you go back home. Don't take what you were doing here and all of the gratitude that you got and try to apply it back home, because this isn't going to work either.
Right.
Yeah.
Lessons, right? You can apply the lessons probably mentally, but not the gratitude. So all of you are in healthcare over the last decades of working in healthcare. Tell us some of the good, the bad, and the ugly you've seen, and what you hope for the future of healthcare as we all age and need it more.
I'll start. One of the things, all of the changes that I've seen in medical care have been, for the most part, remarkably positive. They've helped patients do better, be healthier. One of the things that I regret now, when I see it myself as a patient, is that it's much less personal than it was before. of a fellow that I had known for many years and practiced. I went in to see him as a patient, and it was 10 minutes before he looked up from his computer and saw me and said, "Oh, Nick, I didn't know it was you." That's a shame.
It's a big shame. That's definitely where it's going. The advancements, obviously, the other thing is that the advancements of technology, I assume, have made it, like you said, significantly better in that regard. What do you hope to see? Anything on the horizon that you hope to see in healthcare in general or specifically?
Oh yeah, the advancements are really exciting and still go on, and it's one thing after another that you read about. The most recent, the COVID, and they managed to develop an entirely new kind of vaccine that absolutely took care of the problem in a matter of months, as opposed to the years and decades that it usually took to develop vaccines. Yeah.
That's a big deal. All right, Tony.
I always say one of my favorite conversations when I'm standing in a clinic, like Nick's next, I stand next to the patient and I chat them up, and I usually find out how old they are. I usually get on a topic that today in America is the best time to ever have stage 4 cancer in the history of the planet.
Yeah.
If you're diagnosed with that, that's a terrible experience to go through. But be comforted that it's never been a better time to have that disease. And I give this example that penicillin was only first used on human beings in 1941. So just at the beginning of World War II. It wasn't used in any large quantity till the end of the war. And that's one lifetime. So my dad, who just passed away, was born in 1940. So within one person's lifetime, we went from the discovery of penicillin to not using it anymore. We don't even use penicillin really anymore. We're on our 4th or 5th generation of antibiotic, and look at what we're doing now. It's argued that the first open heart surgery was successfully done on one of the beaches going into Normandy, when a surgeon sewed his leather glove into the myocardium and walked away, thinking that the patient had died, but to find out he survived. Now we can change out your mitral valve by making a small incision in your leg going up into your heart, trading that out and sending you home. Today, if you're a stage 4 quadriplegic, which means you're Reeves in a wheelchair, right? You can actually make money for your family through technology. You can drive around the house. You can get in a car. You can go places. 20 years ago, that wasn't possible. That was not okay. I can't wait to see what the next 20, 30 years are going to be like in medicine. It's changing so fast for the good. Sadly, with everything good, there's something bad. Somebody abuses that system, and we see that, like in the amount of paperwork Nick has to do just to treat somebody, and then becomes less connected to those patients. But I think that's probably the most remarkable thing I've seen in my time in medicine, just this change for the good in technology, what we can do.
That's great. I love hearing those examples. All right, Joe, what about you?
Oh, honestly, I'm not sure there's much to add. These guys covered it so well. I think both of the things that were brought up were exactly, the cutting edge things. I mean, you think about the way we're doing procedures now, and the advanced technologies, et cetera, fantastic. But I got to tell you, I also agree 100% with Nick. There's almost a certain amount of humanity that seems to have gone away. We reminisce a little bit about what is it? There's that TV show, I think it's called Me TV, that station, and you can see like Marcus Welby, MD, or Leave It to Beaver, and those simpler times. And for as much as technology has done for us, it also seems like, not only in medicine, but in social situations too, we've become almost a little bit more isolated and things like this. So, the old ways of doing things and really getting to know your doctor and having him know you and your family, et cetera. Those are some of the things that are getting kind of lost in the mix, if you would. So again, some of the good, some of the bad.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that the people will continue to see that, and maybe there's some shift in bringing the humanity back. I mean, that would be really cool to hope, that you could bring some humanity back.
Yeah, one of the things that it's ongoing right now is more and more medical schools are encouraging people both financially and motivationally to go into primary care where they can spend more time and really get to know the patient and the family and make a career out of that. So that's one positive thing that's going on.
That's really good. Can you believe we've been talking for almost an hour? It goes by so fast. I know. Any last thoughts, Dad, before we close out the show?
No, thanks, and I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you, Tony.
I'm proud of you too, Kelly. Little Kelly, after 20 years of hard work, you're an overnight success.
That's what you said, right? The demons and all the things that people don't see in the front, right?
That's right.
The overnight success after 20 years of hard work. I love it. Well, I really appreciate all of you being on. Nick does not want to be contacted at all unless you want him to teach, right?
Oh, actually, email's fine.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
Yeah.
tell everybody your email.
It's nickmorrison2002@yahoo.com. Don't text me.
We won't give anybody your phone number. All right, Tony, what about you? How can people get a hold of you?
You can call me. I'm old school. I like to talk to people. Right, Kelly?
Yes, you do.
Hey, I sent Kelly an email. Hey, could you call me about this radio show coming up? She sends me an email back. That's not what I asked for. 630-803-6383. And I promise I'll pick up.
Thank you, Tony. I know. I'm all about email. Joe, what about you? How do we get a hold of you?
I have a very simple email. My last name starts with a Z, and it's VEINZ@AOL.com.
That's how long you've been in Veins.
That's how long I've been in Veins. That's right.
It's still AOL.
I just want to say thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to chat with these guys, but wonderful to chat with you as well, Kelly, and to be part of your show today. So thank you.
Ditto.
Thank you so much for listening to Collaborative Connections radio show and podcast, sponsored by KLM. Do what you love and outsource the rest. Until next time, happy connecting.